When the chapter was considered being founded, when we were starting to approach the idea of putting together a board, putting together bylaws, which I did the first draft of, the context for starting a chapter on prevention was very interesting because child abuse had only just begun to be formally recognized nationally with passage of the child abuse laws in 1970 and in 1972 when DIFAS was created. So people really didn't understand a lot about the disease, the social aspects of child abuse, how it impacted families, how it was tied and related in some ways to other social problems such as alcohol and drugs. So we were trying to create awareness about the problem of child abuse, and along came Donna Stone and the National Committee for the Prevention of Child Abuse and asked if we would consider getting involved. At the time it was the Association for Children of New Jersey, getting involved and help create a chapter. And the then executive director, Linda Wood, and myself set about on a series of meetings to put together the legal and the people framework that was going to be necessary to found the chapter. And we did that. In the late 1970s, there was a much higher degree of welfare dependency in New Jersey. You had about 140,000 women with close to 350,000 children and families on what was called AFDC, currently called TANF. There was a lot of research going on back then. Dr. Pelton at DIFAS was doing research on the link between child abuse and poverty. What conclusions could you draw? What conclusions shouldn't you draw relative to poverty and its impact? And so there was a lot of concern about how do you attack a problem that might manifest itself more in an urban setting, but clearly had nothing to do with just poverty per se. And so we looked a lot at that. Today, there's still poverty. Today, there's still a lot of families, homelessness and other issues. I think today, probably more than then, you have more families engaged in work in the welfare system, but probably a higher degree of substance abuse than maybe we had back then. That was prevalent at both times. But I think back then the substance abuse was not as pervasive and multi-generational as it may be today. One of the things that people should know about the early years of Prevent Child Abuse is that it was small. We didn't really know where the next paycheck, so to speak, was going to come from because it was a new organization and it was trying to find a niche in an area that people and the study of prevention had not really evolved to the degree it is today. And so at a time we were both trying to alert the legislature and the public and people to the problem of child abuse, we were trying to get a new organization whose sole mission was to prevent it up and running. And so there were a lot of challenges associated with that. Absolutely. I mean, ACNJ opened its door and lent a lot of support, physical, financial, and others, to get the chapter off the ground. And that was very important to do. The program development side of it, the niches that began with, say, teen parenting program, the recognition that the chapter could model how to develop models for working with at-risk moms. That was the seeds for that were sown in the very beginning of Prevent Child Abuse. The chapter got involved way early on in helping craft and having ACNJ's political clout to set up the Child Abuse Trust Fund. That was a big initiative of the chapter in the early days. Not so long after the formation of the chapter, we got behind that creation of the Children's Trust Fund, and that was hopefully going to be something that was going to seed programs all over the state to prevent child abuse. It was hard to know then that many more causes would be added to the checkoff on the income tax, and it wouldn't generate as much money as we had all hoped. But the chapter undertook that as an effort because it felt it was a very important thing to do. That was important to everyone concerned. The ACNJ board recognized early on that this was going to be a role and a niche that we were not going to undertake. We were going to stay with pure advocacy services, and PCA wanted to model programs and show and demonstrate examples of how you could prevent child abuse. And that was something that was desperately needed, but not something that any other organization was going to do. And maybe it was because they asked us to help set it up that relationship, that special bond between the organizations took hold then. And really, as you said, it's never been broken, and I hope it never will be. Well, like I said, what I did, I felt was important. I didn't want to spend a lot of time going out telling people how bad the problem was. I would have rather spent my energy preventing it. When this opportunity came along, it made so much sense. Deal with the problem at the root cause, deal with the problem early on, try to do things to minimize harm to children. These were things that made so much sense. It didn't make a lot of sense to just keep strengthening the child abuse laws, which I did and I worked on for many years. Improve the foster care system, which I did, but it always made more intuitive sense to prevent this serious problem. I never had any doubt that the chapter would survive. I will tell you, there was one board meeting where there were 3 of us at the board meeting. We had missed 2 payrolls. I looked at Brenda Byrne, who had done a fantastic job of putting the chapter on the map. So, you know, to let people know we were out there. And we were poised to make a decision not to maybe go forward. And we all looked at each other, said, we're not going to let this happen. And we didn't. And one way or another, we made it all work. But I always had in my gut, the chapter would always survive, and it has, and it's grown, and it's a blessing that it has, because it does a mission that no one else in New Jersey performs.